Welcome to Alternative Dog Moms Podcast. I'm Kimberly Gauthier, the creator of Keep the Tail Wagging. For the past 9 years, I've been blogging about raw feeding, pet wellness, and life as a crazy dog mom. I've seen massive improvements in my dog's health since I started raising my dogs naturally, and I'm passionate about sharing my experience to help other pet parents.
I'm Erin Scott. For the past 9 years, I've been researching and learning everything I can about healing cancer, allergies, autoimmune, and mystery illnesses in both my dogs and myself, and I can't wait to share with you everything I've learned on this journey. As the Alternative Dog Moms, we're bringing you all the latest dog health news that we're following and sharing the tips, tricks, and resources we learn along the way. Now, let's get started.
I'm excited.
Hello, Kimberly.
Hi, Erin. Okay, I just can't. I can't even do anything else. I need to know, how was the Healthy Dog Expo?
It was amazing.
I saw some of the pictures here and there on social media, and mostly everyone's hugging up and smiling at a camera. I saw a few pictures of speakers, but I guess, so yes, it was amazing. I want to know, what was your, did you have a favorite speaker? Did someone said just really resonate with you?
So I don't know that I had a favorite speaker. It's like trying to pick your favorite child or something. But I think my overarching takeaway that I hope everybody took away was actually something that Rodney said. And it's a quote from somebody else, but I feel like everybody there is probably going to think it's Rodney's quote, and that he's so brilliant, but which he is. But so it was that we need to be able to learn, unlearn, and relearn.
Oh, that's brilliant.
The concept of not getting so personally attached to our beliefs and our information, and be willing to take in new information and change our minds. And that's something my husband and I talk about a lot, especially with the news and things like that. And I was just man, I hope if nobody, if you don't get anything else out of this weekend, I hope people take that with them.
Yeah.
And he really, did these amazing, metaphors and slides and videos and everything to really illustrate that concept. And so I was that
is so smart. I'm gonna harass him about it, but that is so brilliant, because it is so true. I mean, when I think about my raw feeding journey, from where I started to where I am today, I have tried so many things and believed so many things, and it took a long time for me to just let it go and to go with the flow. And now, when I see people struggling, I feel kind of sad for them. And I'm trying to just say, we don't know, because I get that where someone just asked me a question about organs and, what organs should they add? And I thought pork organs had more bacteria and da-da-da-da-da. And I was just sort of I don't know. I was just, ask around like you're doing it. And it's funny because, this person was and I've heard this from other people too, where they are so afraid of not knowing that they feel embarrassed. And I get
right.
I'm sorry, I have another question, where it's just yeah, guess what? I have a million. It's just the way it is. And I love that message though.
My husband always says, the smartest thing that you can say is, I don't know, but I'm going to go find out.
Yeah, exactly. And for anyone who is listening, I did call my girlfriend who owns a raw food company, and I learned that she actually doesn't have pork kidneys added to her blends because of the high bacteria level in pork kidneys.
Oh,
I did not know this. It was the first time I've heard of it. So it's okay.
Learn something new every day. That's what my grandma always used to say.
So I know this has nothing to do with dogs, but how is the meal situation?
It was pretty DIY for the most part. They did have a lunch, and it was very crowded. And there was a really long line. And since I drove myself, I just went to Panera Bread around the corner.
Nice. See, if I would have gone, I would have just hung around with you.
But there was an awesome dinner on Friday night that I was invited to, that Michelle Allen and Julie Jacobs had gotten together. So that
Yeah.
was a lot of fun in the hotel restaurant there. And the hotel has an awesome restaurant. And then Saturday night, one of my friends from Baltimore who was up, and she's a dog trainer, and some of her dog training friends, we went to this like Japanese steakhouse place that was like right across the street.
Nice.
So there was a lot and I'm a big Starbucks person, and so there was like a Starbucks. You could walk there, but I didn't because it was raining, and so there was like a Starbucks right around the corner too. So it was like, I was like, this is an amazing location.
Yeah. I know the last when I went, and I guess I don't know if I guess it was either 2019, 2018. I honestly don't remember when it had to be. It doesn't matter. We're not going to waste minutes while I figure out the year. But it was snowing when I went. So what was the weather like?
It was really, really nice on Friday. It was gorgeous, probably like sunny, 65. That was the day I drove up. And then it did kind of rain a little bit off and on Saturday, but it wasn't terrible. And then Sunday, it was like a little cloudy. And as I was driving home, it was getting sunnier and sunnier.
Well, how was it? Was it Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, or was it Saturday and Sunday?
So it was like all day Saturday and then Sunday morning. And we were pretty much done like around noon on Sunday.
Okay. Then that makes sense. Because I saw a lot of people still posting on Sunday, and I was like, I thought it was Friday and Saturday, but okay, that makes sense. And when it comes to, I know that there were a lot of speakers. So there is, Susan Thixton. Did Rodney and Karen speak together or apart?
Apart.
Okay. And then Billy, what did Billy did not talk about the dangers of feeding bread to dogs, did he?
No, but he told me that story at dinner on Friday night. And I do want to say in your defense, by the way, that it was sourdough bread, which is better than like Wonder Bread.
Exactly. And it was homemade by Billy Hookman. I mean, when Billy Hookman makes something, everyone can eat it. It's the healthiest thing around. It has all organic, locally sourced ingredients.
When it's sourdough, sometimes they're even doing it off a SCOBY, like fermentation,
Exactly. Lua was like, she crawled into my lap and gave me those Lua eyes. And I was just like, of course you can share my bread. Here you go. And then I just heard, you did not just give my dog bread. And I was like, oh, crap.
So I will say that, one of the takeaways I had from Billy's speech, which I had to laugh because he was like, I'm apologizing to all the dog trainers in the crowd before I say this, but he was talking about dogs and begging for food and, at the table, and how that's sort of how they evolutionarily became dogs is, bonding with people over scraps of food and things. And so, I had dogs begging we've been sharing food with our dogs for 200,000 years. It's part of evolution. So, I thought that was like a cute, I don't know, cute, but it was just an interesting takeaway that it's like, oh, we're not necessarily doing a bad thing.
I'll have to share that with Johan because he's constantly sharing his food with the dogs. He doesn't understand. The dogs don't beg from me. I can eat an entire meal and they're just laying around. They'll look over at me to see, is she sharing? Nope. Okay, I'm going to lay down again. And
he's just engaging in an evolutionary behavior that has been evolving for 200,000 years.
There you go. That is hilarious. So what was his topic, since he wouldn't share it with me?
So it was really interesting. It was kind of about what he feeds his dog and why. And, one of his main takeaways was just about doing what works for your dog. And that, not the same thing doesn't work for every dog.
Feed the dog in front of you.
Yes. And, building variety in the diet. And he talked about like things that he gives, Huckleberry every day versus things he gives him kind of once in a while. And then he talked about like building a healthy fatty acid profile, building a better microbiome. And, that was one of my big takeaways that I think almost every speaker touched on was microbiome. And that's something I've been kind of nerding out on for the last couple years, especially with my dog Penny and her like weird health issues and stuff. So I was like, oh, that's like one of my top takeaways that I hope everybody got was like microbiome. And
I love that. It just goes to show that, because I know that when Animal Biome came to the market, the talk about microbiome was huge. And so it kind of it came across at some times as kind of a commercial catchy thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is what we're into now. But it kind of calmed down and people started having serious discussions about it. And I think it's because people, a lot of people who were taking that test and then following up with the consultation, maybe getting supplements or adjusting their dog's diet and seeing a difference in their dog. I think that that's amazing. I would actually love to do a test on my dogs after like a few more months doing the rotational mono feeding. I mean, technically I should do the test now and then wait 6 months and do it then.
Compare it. Right?
Yeah, to have a comparison. But it would be really interesting because I'm curious to know what the changes I'm making, how they're going to impact their microbiome, only because it's been a few weeks and I'm already seeing significant changes in 2 of my dogs. And so, yeah, do you want me to tell you what they are?
I do.
Well, Zoe needs to lose weight, so she's losing weight, which is nice. But also, I had noticed that her coat had gotten really dull and kind of flaky. And this is something that happened with Sydney. And I don't know what to attribute it to. I never really figured it out. But one thing I found is that when she lost all the weight and was more healthy, her coat looked a lot healthier. And so getting the weight off of her, I think she just started losing the weight. I can feel her ribs again. And it's really nice to see. And then with Rodrigo, he has arthritis. And so his arthritis seems to be not bothering him as much. And then, with Apollo, I don't know. He's a puppy still. I mean, he's 3 years old, but he's still a puppy. He's a nice little healthy dog. But Scout, I mean, Scout's doing really well with the diet. One thing that I found is that there's certain medications that I have to give him. I never know what to call them because they're not tranquilizers, but they're just those medications to calm him down when we go to the vet. One of the side effects for Scout is diarrhea.
Sedative.
Yes, thank you. I have been trying to think of this word for weeks. Sedative. It gives him diarrhea. And this diet kind of stops that or slows that down by switching him, like giving him a plant day where his gut is just processing plants. And I actually changed it for him where he and all my dogs, they get either bone broth or goat's milk. So tomorrow is going to be the plant day and they'll get bone broth and goat's milk for lunch or for breakfast and for lunch. And then for dinner, they'll get a huge vegetable meal. And that's their plant day. And it's really working out for them. So, but anyway, back to the expo. So I know that there were 400 million people at this event. How is that?
Well, I always get a little weird in a crowd. So I'm always like in the back on the aisle so I can like duck out if I need to.
I do the same.
But it was honestly like really awesome. Like that was really, I've done some of these like online summits and things like that. And these have been amazing information to learn. But there really is something special, right? To being in a room with people who are all on like the same wavelength as you. And I was just thinking, I was talking to one of my friends today, and she owns the retail store where I like the independent pet food store that I go to, and I was telling her, about the expo and everything, and she was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like she has a horse that's very sick, so she didn't want to leave her horse, but I really wish she had gone because I feel like it would have been good for her. And I always assume that everybody who shops there is like me, and she was kind of like, no. Like no, like most of them just want like some kind of kibble, and I was like, oh, and we were just really kind of nerding out on some of the stuff, and and I was just thinking like how alone we can feel sometimes in this journey with our pets, and especially if we're doing things that like not everybody else around us is doing, or that even our vet doesn't agree with. And so to be in like this room of people where you can just strike up a conversation with whoever's sitting next to you and talk about things, like it's just, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one. Like I'm not crazy. Like everybody here is on the same wavelength. And I think that was so important. And, there's a few times like we'd be standing in a line or just sitting there and, everybody's super friendly and you just start talking to the person next to you, like, who are your dogs and stuff. And so it was really just exciting from that perspective.
Yeah. That sounds amazing. And I mean, that's what the thing about it is, that I love being with other people who feed raw, whether it be raw, home cooked, whatever the case may be, but the people who we're putting all this time and energy and focus into what we're doing with our dogs. Because I mean, I'm actually pretty darn lucky because almost my entire friendship base here locally is dog people. And
Mine too.
my social world is dog stuff. It's like we have rescue events to go to.
Yes.
My friends stopped by on Monday and brought me a huge bag of frozen bones. And so I made bone broth all that day. And so it's like totally normal. And so when I'm outside of my bubble here, and like if I'm at my day job, it's weird to me when I meet a new person, because I've worked at my day job for almost 18 years. And so they all know who I am. They know what I'm about. and when one of my dogs died 8 years ago, almost 9 years ago, I got bereavement. They weren't supposed, my boss wasn't supposed to give me bereavement, but he gave me bereavement for a few days because, and yeah, they're accepting and they understand, and they'll say that, well, to Kimberly, her dogs are her kids. And then people are like, oh, but it's like, it's so much fun to go to these events where you're talking to people who are so, I mean, the pet industry, love it or hate it, whether, the kibble, veterinarians who don't support raw, all the downsides that we see when we're at an event, even if an event as big as like Super Zoo. So you're seeing, the Purinas all the way up to the raw food brands. You're seeing everything there. The cool thing is that we're all so crazy about our animals.
Right.
So it's like, even if we don't agree on how to feed them and whatever else is out there, we're all crazy about our animals. And there's this type of a feeling where if your family doesn't quite understand why you're so crazy, and
these are your people.
Yeah, these are your people. And it kind of reinvigorates you, because I know that I found that when I come home from Super Zoo, I'm like at the airport writing, because I'm up late at night writing, because I just feel so inspired being around people. So I was wondering, did you have that?
Oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. And I have all these things I want to try and all these things I want to buy. And
and did Rodney explain the blueberries? Did anyone ask him about the blueberries and the light bulbs? Because I did.
No, not specifically. That's very funny. But there was a lot of talk about like diversity, and Billy touched on it, like diversity in feeding plants builds their microbiome, but nobody specifically talked about the blueberries.
I gave him a really hard time because I love the graphic about the blueberries. And I think the graphic was, you fed 2 blueberries to every pound that your dog weighs. Was it? Feels like that's wrong. No, for every 2 pounds? No, that's not right either. But basically it came to
a lot of blueberries.
It was like 35 blueberries a day. So obviously my math is off. Yes, I'm an accountant by day. So obviously my math is off. I can't remember what it said, but I figured it out. It's like 35 blueberries. And the blueberries that I buy here are very big. And I was just like, do you know how many blueberries that is? And he was just like, the blueberries here are really small. And so it's really not that big of a deal. I didn't think about the fact that American blueberries are so much bigger than Canadian blueberries and UK blueberries. And
some of them are like wild blueberries and they're very small.
Yeah, exactly. And then, when he said that, I was like, oh my gosh, I am the ugly American who did not think about the fact that there are blueberries all around the world. Some places don't even have access to blueberries, so they have to be shipped in, and they may look different. All I could think about was, look, dude, these blueberries are huge, and I'm not giving my dogs 35 blueberries a day. But yeah, I just love this, and I'm like so excited for you. I'm so proud of you for going and staying and getting some learning in. What about Susan Thixton? What was she talking about?
Oh my gosh, all the things. So in my mind, by the way, Susan Thixton is like the Erin Brockovich of the pet food
Right?
industry.
And
Yes.
isn't it crazy that she spoke to Erin Brockovich?
Yes.
That's just like full circle moment right there.
I thought that too. So, you know, a lot of it was like stuff that I was like somewhat familiar with, but I really loved hearing her just like lay it out the way that she did. And I think her first slide said, "How bad is it?" And then like the next thing comes up and it's like, well, there's bad regulations, bad regulators, bad ingredients, bad manufacturing, bad labeling, and bad consequences. So it's bad.
I know. It's like,
And then just this whole idea about like feed versus food and how things aren't properly labeled,
mhm.
and you know that kibble is responsible for 98% of the recalls and things for salmonella and all these things, whereas raw is only responsible for 1.2%
Wow.
um, of pathogenic bacteria recalls. Uh, Over the years, there's only been 2 human illnesses related to
Wow.
raw, whereas kibble, there has been at least 49. And yet, if you go on the FDA's website, there actually is a warning about like how feeding raw is so dangerous,
Mhm.
even though 98% of the problems are with the kibble.
Ah, that's crazy. And it's funny
And
because I shouldn't be surprised, but I'm so shocked by those figures
statistics, I know.
because we're constantly being fed how dangerous raw feeding is. And whenever there is a raw food brand that has a recall, man, it gets so much press.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of websites that have for a while, I don't know about now, but for a while were just so anti-raw. It was insane. One was Poison Pets. And I remember she did not like Darwin's. And it was just like, the articles that she wrote about Darwin's were like, this isn't right. I mean, it was just like, what's going on? Why don't you like raw food?
So one of my favorite moments from the conference happened while Susan Thixton was talking. I mean, it was sort of a sad story, but she's telling a story about a man who was a food scientist, and his dog actually died from endotoxins in the pet's food.
Mhm.
And all he knew was his dog died, and he did all this research into what could have caused it. And he was feeding his dog Beneful, and there was like
Mm.
a collective crowd, like, ugh. And that was like one of those moments, like, my people,
It's like, how do you really feel?
right? It was just one of those things where it just made you feel like you're in the right room.
Mhm. I remember when I was new to pet blogging, I was feeding, and we were so proud of ourselves. We were feeding Blue Buffalo,
Oh, we used to feed that too
yeah,
and think we were doing good. Yes.
being the responsible pet parents we were.
Yes.
We saw a commercial. We were like, that looks like a good food, and I like what that
It
commercial is
has
saying to
meat as
me.
the first ingredient.
Exactly.
This is a good thing.
This is
Yes.
a good thing. We went to the pet store. They were telling us all the great things about it, how great. And so we started feeding Blue Buffalo. And then I got a comment from someone that told me about, the ingredients and sent some articles to me. And it was so interesting because it was just sort of like, well, damn, what do
What
I
am I
do?
supposed to feed? Right.
But it still never occurred to me to not feed kibble. That came a long while later, but it's just like, I think it's funny today that, when you're in a room full of raw feeders, man, we have an opinion, and it's, and we can share it without feeling like we're going to hurt someone's feelings.
Right. And then somebody, at the end, she took a few questions, and somebody was kind of like, well, what do we do? What can we do? Like, do we need to, petition? Do we need to, stand out with some protests, and she was like, we just need the current laws to be enforced. And, it's like, write your legislator. She's got form letters. It's like, we're not asking for anything crazy. Nobody, we just want the
Oh,
laws that are
wow.
currently on the book about feed versus food to be enforced, because it shouldn't be called pet food. It should be called pet feed.
Nice. Gosh, it's so simple too.
Yeah.
Because I have always felt like she was climbing a steep mountain over there, and breaking it down like that makes it so simple, and it makes it more tragic because
Yeah.
it's like everything's all there. You guys just need to do your job.
Right.
I mean, and it's just, and I think the thing that sucks so much about, like with AFCO and these pet food companies is I know that these people love animals. These people aren't walking around going, "Hoo, ha, 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 ha.
Right.
We're gonna, how many dogs did we kill today?" These people, I mean, my brother works for PetSmart, and he's actually one of the few people that doesn't have a dog, and people bring their dogs to work. They're crazy about dogs. This is what their world is. And I know that that's the same. I remember years and years ago when Rodney and I were new friends, he once asked me, he was like, "Do you think the people at Purina love their dogs any less than we do?" And I was just like, "Sometimes it feels that way, but I know it's not the truth." And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, they think they're doing the right thing.
Right.
And, yeah, there may be some people out there that understand, that's not the greatest ingredient, but they really think that they're doing the right thing. And that's what got me to stop kibble bashing, just that conversation, and realizing that, people are trying their hardest, both professionally and, pet parents at home. Everyone's doing the best that they can.
Yeah.
It's just, it's so sad because it's like, I know you guys love dogs too. So why aren't you following the law?
Right.
Why? Oh, what about Kendra Pope? Were you able to ask her my question?
I was not because after she spoke, I never really saw her again.
Well, with 400 people, I don't understand how you would.
But so she was the first speaker of the morning, and I had been standing out in the vendor area talking to people, and then it's like, oh, I have to go in. So I was like, it was like standing room only. I was just standing in the back of the room for her, and I just admire that woman, oh my gosh, so much. And so she had this whole thing about that was like a pyramid. And the bottom of the pyramid is nutrition. And then you kind of work your way up to different things that you can do to help your dog that has cancer. And, the top one is being more the targeted things we were talking about mistletoe and things like high dose vitamin C infusions and all that. But there's all these other things that you can do, the mushrooms and her whole point is that it's about creating an environment that's anti-conducive to the cancer,
Yeah.
and it's about doing everything in the pyramid to create an environment in your dog's body that, to fight cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts with nutrition, and then adding in nutraceuticals and things like that. And then, we can go, and that there's just so many tools in the toolbox. That not every vet knows about, but she wants you to know about it. And, and she can help guide your vet. She can help guide you.
Mm-hmm.
You can, work with your holistic and integrative practitioners and get them turned on to these things. And of course we had been talking about mistletoe,
Mm-hmm.
and I had actually used mistletoe in my own breast cancer treatment. And so I'm super always nerdy about, about knowing everything about that and hoping that that's used more in our dogs because there's really great research about it, at least in people. They've been using it in Europe for 35 years.
Yeah, you said that. I started looking it up and I was astounded. And I actually no, that's not it. I bought some.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Mistletoe.
Oh,
but it's a tincture.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because it's it has a health benefits other than cancer. And what I found really interesting is that, mistletoe is a poisonous plant. So I think
there's many different strains.
Well, that's good to know. But I just really think it's interesting how poison cures poison. Sort
right.
of with an anti-venom is made with snake venom.
Right.
And so it's just I just think nature is fascinating. It's just so fascinating, but I love it. Yay.
Yeah.
Oh, I do have one question. Did she mention anything about, because there is a belief that if your dog is going through chemotherapy, you shouldn't be giving your dog antioxidants because the antioxidants will protect the cancer cells and make it hard for chemo to kill the cancer cells. And I've always...
She did touch on that.
Yay.
And just kind of again, that's why it's important to work with, a practitioner who knows about these things, because you
Mhm.
don't want to, put yourself in that kind of position. Yeah.
Yeah. The hardest thing is, of course, when we get a cancer diagnosis, our first thing is we race to Google and start trying to read up as much as possible. I get emails from people every week, either whether it be hemangiosarcoma or canine lymphoma, who want to know, it's like, well, what did you do? How is your dog doing? I can tell you it was a kick in the gut for 6 months after Sydney passed away, when people would be like, I'm so sorry about your dog. How's she doing now? And I have to be able to like
Oh.
find a way to say, well, she's dead. But I would just say, oh, well, she passed on, and, and stuff like that, and say that without giving them, without, I guess, taking away their hope, because
Right.
there's so many dogs out there that have survived hemangiosarcoma and have lived, years longer. In the group on Facebook, I know that there were dogs that were 4 years post diagnosis and
Oh,
doing
wow.
great. So it's just like, it is a possibility, but
So
that's
at the
amazing.
end of her presentation, this was one of the cool things, was she went through some like case studies of
Hmm.
different dogs that she's worked with.
Oh, good.
And I don't think any of them had hemangio, but one of the owners was there, and her dog like had lived for I think it was 5.3 years
Oh,
past
wow.
diagnosis date, and had like literally very recently passed. And the woman, I was actually standing like almost like right next to her, and she's like in tears, and there's like all these pictures of her dog, and he had been diagnosed when he was like 9 years old, and he lived to like 14, and there was like pictures of his like 14th birthday, and he had been given a prognosis of like 6 to 9 months.
Oh,
And
wow.
they had these really amazing results. And she said that when he passed, that their like traditional regular veterinarian um kind of contacted her like, okay, what are you doing, because there's something to this. And it is like optimistic that you're changing people's minds. And there were other dogs that she's worked with where, when they had lived so long past their initial prognosis, that when they did pass, like a veterinary school wanted to do like a necropsy to see, like,
Mhm.
because he ended up passing from something totally different than
Yeah.
the cancer, and they wanted to see like what happened here,
Mhm.
what exactly is the effect. And so it's just so validating to hear those kind of stories too.
Oh,
And then on just
absolutely.
like a very like sweet note, she ended her the last slide was this like painting of like kind of like you're watching a woman walk her dog kind of down a hill. And she said this was a painting that her mom had done for her, and her mom was actually there in the audience. And she said, this is the first time that my mom's ever got a chance to like see me speak, and like she's crying, like her mom's crying, everybody's giving like a standing ovation. And it was just like,
Oh,
oh
that's nice. That's so
yeah.
sweet. I love that. I love case studies, and because there's a Hermangio group on Facebook, and they have a file that has everyone, like, what they're doing for
Mhm.
their dog, diet wise, other things that they're doing with their dog, the date that their dog was diagnosed, like what type of, like, was it spleen, or was it, or wherever it was, and basically how far out their dog had survived, or was still alive. And it was one of those things where it was so helpful, because I think that, every person who reaches out to me is understandably very upset, very afraid, very scared, thinking that they're going to lose their dog. And it's just sort of like, one thing that I learned with Scout is that cancer is not a death sentence, or it doesn't have to be with every situation. And my vet, back with Sydney, one thing that she told me in the beginning is, she was like, Kimberly, you feed raw, your dogs are healthy. She's like, I have all their records here. This is a healthy dog, so there is a chance that we can somehow get her over. I mean, it's not good, but we can still get some time with her. And we did. I got 5 weeks with her. And with Scout, I got over a year with him. I mean, and he's still going. And it's one of those where I think that in our community, the people who are feeding fresh food, we need to, give ourselves a pat on the back, because, and I think that we get so focused on, I know I do, at least I get so focused on learning and learning something new that I sometimes forget to stop and appreciate what I've accomplished with my dogs.
Right, right.
Because, because we're always looking towards like the Dr. Beckers and the Dr. Koziers and Rodney Habibs and the Billy Hookmans of the world. And we're like, oh, wow, look at what they're doing. But it's like, man, we get up every day and we mix up these meals and we're doing meal prep and we're shopping for foods and we're still researching, even after years, we're still researching and learning new things. That's, on top of having a job and, and all the other things. I mean, that's pretty impressive that we are so devoted to our animals. And I think that sometimes we forget to just acknowledge that in ourselves.
Absolutely. And that's always one of the things I always credit my dogs with, like helping me stay present, helping me stay in the moment, and not like getting too ahead of myself, I always think that's one of the greatest lessons I've learned from them.
So very true. So very true. Wow. So I'm so glad you went to that. That
Me
sounds like
too.
so much fun.
So one of the other speakers that I was excited about was Suzanne Clothier,
Oh
who
yeah.
is a dog trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And so she actually is the author of like my favorite dog book ever called Bones Would Rain from the Sky. And it's been around for a long time. I probably read it 12 or more years ago for the first time. And it just really transformed how I think about having a relationship with my dog.
Mm-hmm.
And, we have pit bulls, and especially 15 or more years ago, I don't know, there was a different sort of conversation around pit bulls, and
Mm-hmm.
people get very weird about training pit bulls, and some trainers won't train them, and there's sort of that like alpha type of thing that goes along with it, and
Yeah.
that just never resonated with me, and that was never how I wanted to have a relationship with my dogs. And so her book was very like validating to me in that regard of like having this relationship based training. And then we have our dog Nino now, who is like the most like fearful, freaked out dog, that we've ever had. And so I actually have my husband read the book, and he is not like, I mean, he likes to he likes audiobooks,
Yeah.
but he's not like a reader, but he has read that book 2 different times just over the years, because it's just such a good reminder of like taking things at Nino's pace, and and what we want our relationship with him to look like. So I was very excited to be
Gonna
able to hear her
add it
speak.
to my shopping cart.
And so she was actually talking about something. I think this would be really cool for people who are maybe like veterinarians or trainers or dog
Mm-hmm.
sitters. So she's been working on this app that's called like the functional assessment tool, and it's kind of about, and like her first slide was kind of like, how is your dog today? And then she kind of breaks down like how she looks at that, about like how they're eating or drinking
Mm-hmm.
or urinating or pooping, or how do they get along with other dogs, and
Mm-hmm.
like if they're having a good day, are they one way versus not. And it was just like a great way to like think about your dog in sort of that holistic manner of like, how is your dog today? And she's also just like an amazing like storyteller, and like she could be like a comedian or something. She's just like,
There,
you get
I
really
found it.
hooked in. So I was very excited to get to see her too.
I added it to my Audible. Well, gosh, it's so cool. Was Susan Garrett there?
No, I think she had canceled or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love her. Like if I were to go, I mean, gosh, if I were to go, I would have wanted to corner her and talk to her about puppy culture, because I'm fascinated with puppy culture and wish it was something that I knew about when I first brought home puppies. And I love dog trainers because I follow a couple of them. Well, I follow a lot of them on Instagram, but there are two in particular on Instagram that are I just love them so much because they're so just matter of fact and easy, and the way they deliver information makes so much sense, and I just get such a kick out of it. And it's interesting to me because I feel like dog trainers and people who work in rescue tend to have similar, probably veterinarians too, but it's mostly I see it in rescue workers and dog trainers, where you get to see kind of like the jerks of the world and how they interact with their dogs, and you're brought out to fix
Fix.
things, dealing with people who are like, yeah, train my dog, and they don't actually want to be involved, and that this isn't going to go well, but and I figure that it's got to be so hard to keep to just be patient with people at times. When Rodrigo and Sydney were puppies, and I brought them home, and I was so excited to have puppies. And I didn't know anything about littermates or littermate syndrome. I just thought that we adopted Rodrigo, and then a couple days later, I convinced Johan to get another puppy, because it's like we were gonna have two dogs. It's just that he wanted to start with one, make sure we got it, and then get another. And I was just like, why don't we just get siblings? They've always known each other. They'll play. I didn't know about littermate syndrome until after we made the decision. And then by then I was not going to change my mind. But I reached out on social media to find out, what should I know, and how can I avoid this? And this woman sent me, it was a trainer, the worst emails. Just like, she was furious with me for having litter mates, and said, you're going to be one of those people, you're going to get bored with them, and then you're going to go take them and have them euthanized. And I'm so sick of people like you. And she was just like, and I'm sitting on the couch reading these messages, thinking this woman was going to help me, just bawling and thinking I'm this horrible person. And at the end of them, I was just sort of like, I'm done. I'm not going to listen to this anymore. And she was just sort of like, hey, one more thing. I went ahead and found you a dog trainer. And just FYI, you're welcome, because it's really hard to find qualified dog trainers in your area. And she wasn't wrong about that at the time. And so here's this woman. And the woman turned out to be the most amazing, like polar opposite, just the most amazing woman. And just energy was so nice. And she came to the house and she trained our puppies. And she was like, oh, litter mates. Okay, we're going to train them this way. And she gave and told me things to watch out for. And if this happens, call me, because we need to do this. And we had I trained with her for a year, just off and on with the puppies. And she was so great. And so it's funny that, and I actually went back years later and thanked this trainer. And she was just sort of like, I don't believe I said those things. And I'm like, oh, you did. And not only did you say them, but I spoke to other people who have worked with you, and they were like, yep, that's her. And I was like, and it was horrible and you were mean, but you changed my life. And because I have these amazing dogs, and it's just like, so it's too bad that it had to go that way.
Right.
But I think that the experience made me appreciate the profession so much more, because I don't know what she's seen in her career with people and their dogs.
I always feel like when you get messages like that, like it's somebody's trauma speaking to you, because they've seen some shit.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to know about it. Thank you for the trainer. She was awesome. Right. And so she was just like, well, I'm glad it worked out for you. And I was like, it did. It worked out great. And yeah, and I have great dogs because of it. And, didn't have to deal with littermate syndrome. And I was actually kind of cocky about it for quite some time.
When we had our old girls, Lucy and Kahlua, they were both female pit bulls. And I remember people saying like the most crazy things, like, you can't have two females in the same house.
Yes.
And it's like, they were literally like the best of friends for 10 years. Like they were just each other's best friend. They played, they tag team. I mean, I can't even tell you how many rabbits they killed over the years in our yard. Is they had like this hunting, partnership down. Like they were, amazing. And I understand like, and at the time I was still kind of such a new dog owner that I'm like, oh my God, but now I guess I've just come to realize, like, first of all, like, sometimes you have two female dogs in the house and it goes okay. Sometimes you have two in the house and it doesn't go okay.
Yeah. And same thing with litter mates. It's like some people have really great experiences with litter mates and some people have horrifying experiences with litter mates. I just, I just love, I don't want to be a dog trainer because, I don't like people. So I would not be.
I think there's a lot of dog trainers that don't like people, actually.
It's like, I know going in that I would just not be good. But I love the idea. So I like to read a lot of books. I like to follow dog trainers. I just love these people who seem to have this innate ability to communicate with animals in a way that I just have never seen. And it's just so amazing when, like, I know a woman here locally. She is a dog trainer. And when we brought Apollo home, I called her and asked her, can I have an emergency session? It's like my stepson bought a dog. He can't take care of it. So Johan flew down to Arizona, got him and brought him back. And we were going to take care of him, in Johan's mind temporarily. In my mind, I was like, I have another dog. And I think my stepson was like, yay. I made my stepmom happy, because I was. And I love him till this day because of that, because he's a great dog. But yeah, she came out to, because we were like low on time. It wasn't one of those things where we can meet up somewhere and walk with the dogs or anything like that. And I know that it's not always a good idea to introduce dogs on your property, because the home dogs can get pretty protective of their space. So she came out to guide us through the introductions. And it was just like an hour of taking each dog one at a time, and then taking 2 dogs with Apollo, and then, and then all of a sudden the whole pack with Apollo. And then she spent time just watching how they interacted with each other and pointed out things that I needed to keep an eye on, and helped me through that. And after that, I mean, Apollo and Rodrigo didn't get along for months, but for the most part, he blended into the family seamlessly, because this wonderful person who was able to see things that I couldn't see. And I've had that experience with so many dog trainers. It's like, I just love the profession.
I know. I always joke, like, some of my best friends are dog trainers.
They're amazing, crazy, nutty people. They truly are.
So I'll tell you just the other couple funny things that happened during the expo.
Okay.
So one of my favorite other moments of the expo is Rodney's talking. He's actually talking about the different flea tick medications and the different studies, showing the problems with the chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
And the fire alarm starts going off in the middle of his talk, and we're all like, oh my God. And the fire alarm had also gone off at like 6:30 that morning. And, and it had gone off for a long time, to the point where I'm like, I'm in my pajama pants. Like, do I need to get out the door here? Like, but it only went off for like, a few rings while Rodney's talking. So he starts talking again. Now he's talking about the next study, and like, boom, the fire alarm starts going off again. And now he's like, okay, is there like some sort of pharmaceutical rep here that doesn't want me talking about this, And then he kept like starting, and we're all like waiting, is it gonna happen again? So that was just like one of those funny, things that happened. And then on the first morning, when we're all standing in line to get checked in, Dr. Becker came down, and of course everybody's kind of all aflutter, like, oh, it's Dr. Becker. And she like grabs a stack of like name tag lanyards, and she's like walking through, like, is this person here like Sawyer, like, and she's just walking through the line, and everybody's like, oh my God. Like, I think people were so like caught off guard. Like, nobody was like trying to grab her or anything, but I just really have to hand it to Dr. Kosher, to all the people who were helping put it on, to, Karen and Rodney's team with Blair Becker and Shayna Allen. I mean, they were rocking and rolling. We did these book signings and photos, and I mean, they were just checking you off. Like, everybody was, it was just a great event. Everybody was well organized and pleasant.
I'm so excited about that too, because Kosher, I mean, she had to cancel it twice.
I know.
And she's like so good at it. And she had to cancel. I think one time the hotel canceled on her, and I think the hotel actually ended up closing because,
well, they renovated. I know the place that it was at, they had actually renovated, which it was very nice looking. Everybody said it used to be very 70s looking, but it's very nice now. So I think that was one of the issues.
Yeah. And it was just like, because she was helping me when I was trying to plan the Seattle Natural Pet Expo. Mm-hmm. And she was so amazing, like shared everything. And I was like going over things with her, and it's like, they said this, and she's like, no, you don't want to do that. You want to do this. And even when it was over and I realized, I don't think this is going to happen, they weren't going to give me my money back. And she was just sort of like, go read the contract. She's like, I guarantee you there's something in that contract. And I did. I read the contract, and I copied the sentence and said, really? You're not giving me my money back? And just, I was like, because the contract says this. And I got the check like a few days later in the mail.
Wow.
And it's just sort of like, yeah, they are, it's not easy, but it was
No.
exciting and stuff, but it's not, there's so many things you need to think about that, were it not for her guidance, and she gives, I mean, like all of these people, they give so much freely.
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, honestly, Dr. Kozier could package up plan your own expo package and sell it for $199 and people would buy it because it's not one of those, I didn't think it would be easy, but I honestly thought it would be similar to maybe having a simple wedding where you go to a hotel and you buy it, like, in Vegas, and you buy a wedding package. And
Right.
so all you have to do is show up with your family and friends in your dress, do the wedding, they take the pictures, and then you go about your day. And I literally thought it would be a little more complicated than that. And I was so very wrong. I was so very wrong. And I had to be very clear about so many things and talk to them and make sure about so many things. And also because, different states are, of course, going to do things differently. And also different hotel chains are going to do things differently. But she was just free with her time. Because I would just be like, okay, this is what they're saying. I don't know about this. And she was like, oh yeah, no, you don't want to do that. Or yeah, you need to think about doing this. And I love that she was able to pull this off. And I love that it was so huge because she is just like so completely amazing and so passionate about what she does, whether, when it comes to, breeding dogs, veterinary medicine, puppy culture, and, I mean, and she brings all of this stuff together and it's just like so amazing. She's pretty amazing person. So I'm just like so excited.
Oh, so that was something that I thought was kind of just an interesting fact. I'm a big rescue person. I know you're very active in the rescue community, but I also know when it comes to health issues that, that attracts a lot of people who are trying to breed and do all the, breeding. And I'll tell you, I was never totally like adopt, don't shop, because I always have understood that there are people who are breeding for specific purposes. And, I understand it like in certain, purposes. But just from the idea of like being able to make your own health decisions for your dog, I really understand it too. Like any dog that we get, is coming out of a shelter and has just gotten 100 vaccines and, dewormed and hit up with everything that there is, when we already know that they're probably not at optimal health if they're, been in the shelter anyway, and God only knows what they've been eating. And in my dog Nino's case, it was a car tire that we actually had to have surgically removed from his stomach that he had been eating pieces of a car tire, of a steel belted radial car tire when we adopted him. So it's like you never know kind of what you're getting yourself into. And so Dr. Becker was talking about like how her heart is always in rescue, but she's also very supportive of, like there's people who have like 5th generation, 7th generation raw fed dogs. And so she kind of did like a show of hands of like kind of who was here from rescue world versus who was here, as breeding. And it was pretty much 50-50. And I was actually kind of surprised by that. I actually thought it would have been more like 75 breeder, 25 rescue or something. So I was actually sort of surprised by that. And I did stop. There was one girl and her boyfriend from Boston, and she had a big pit bull Dean Russo artwork hoodie on. And I just stopped her and I'm like, I just wanted to say I'm a pit bull person too. Because everybody I talk to is like, oh, we have like Portuguese water dogs or like a poolie or, and I'm like, where's my pit bull people? So.
I know, that's how I kind of feel about mutts, is this sort of like, because everyone always asks me, because I was at Home Depot, we're doing house stuff. I don't know if the last time we talked, if my wall was this color. But
it was red last time.
So we've been painting and doing all these updates to the house. And, we were at Home Depot getting some stuff, and this sweet little, probably like a golden doodle or something, was so sweet. And I was like, oh my gosh, can I, pet your dog? And he was like, oh, but she'll jump. And I'm like, oh, don't worry, I got dogs. I was like, and she did these little wimpy jumps. And I'm like, this isn't jumping.
You're like, this is nothing.
My dog will break a hip. I'm worried. I worry that he will break someone's hip because he gets so excited and stuff. He tries to stay on his feet, but he just gets so excited.
They start like dancing.
I know, exactly. And it's just so funny. But it's like, but he asked me, he's like, oh, well, how many dogs do you have? And I was like, 4. He's like, oh, what breed? And I was like, mutts. And I always feel like it's it's a letdown. I don't care that my dogs are mutts, but I don't have any cool breed to share with them. Sometimes I'll go, well, one is a Goberian, but I don't like to promote that because it's just sort of like, it's not a real breed. It's just someone, I feel like Apollo is a dog that, when Game of Thrones was popular and everybody was getting Huskies and then Huskies started landing in the shelters. And so someone was like, if we mix a Husky with the Golden, maybe it'll, dial down the Husky and people will like him more. And no, Apollo is just a Husky and a Golden. It's just like, there is no dialing it down. He is there is times when he is a Husky and it's wonderful. There are times when he is a Husky and it's awful. And same thing with the Golden. I mean, it's just like, it wasn't a good blend, but he is a great dog. He is such a great dog, but he's a mutt.
Well, yeah, trust me, when I say I have pit bulls, you never know what kind of reaction you're going to get from people.
And that's what's so funny is I love pit bull. I was raised with pit bulls. My father raised them. And funny story, they were always named Kojak and Lady. It's always a boy and a girl. And I always thought that they lived a really long life. And my father was like, no, I just kept naming the boys Kojak and the girls Lady so you guys could remember their names. And it's like, oh.
You're like, just ruined my childhood.
I see. But yeah, he's the reason why I am the way I am. I'm an insane dog person. Whereas my mom's like, isn't feeding raw going to make them bloodthirsty?
Oh, boy. I've seen that one before. Well, it just always cracks me up when I hear people talk about like pedigree and papers and all these things. Because like I literally found Penny in an alley in Northwest Baltimore.
Oh, wow.
I was out TNRing cats with a friend of mine who she was volunteering with this organization. So we're out trapping cats in this alley. And like, here comes this like skinny, saggy mama, hardly any fur on her, all like flea bitten up dog. And yeah, that's my Penny.
Oh, that's sweet. I love that. Cause I always love that, when dogs end up, from wherever they come from, but then you see the pictures of them curling up on the sofa.
Yeah.
Or, sleeping on a pillow. And it's just like, oh, see, this is what your life should be like.
Exactly. And she's so funny because since day one of her being here, she's like, I sleep on the bed. So she knew what she wanted.
I just love that. That is, she's like, this is my world. This is exactly where I need to be. I love that. That makes me happy. Well, I'm glad you had a great time.
Yes, it was such a good time. I'm so glad I went. It sounded like somebody won tickets to next year's conference. So I have like a year to recover. It was a lot of driving.
I know. I will definitely be there next year. But it's like, yeah, I'm glad that I stayed home with my dog. He was fine. Nothing happened to him. He would have survived if I left. I don't know if I would have. But yeah, I'm looking forward. Just after seeing everyone having such a great time, it was just like, what was I worried about again?
Well, one of the funny things, I was had commented to Charlie and Larry of Paldega because they were posting that they were going to be there, and I was like, "Oh, I hope I get to meet you guys." And they were literally the first people I saw. Like the first day I get there, I like walk in and I'm like, "Oh my god!" And so I'm like, "I just have to say, like, I was just saying, I hope I get to meet you." And literally, like an hour later, I'm like,
they are so nice. They are the nicest people. I met them at the Dogs Naturally Summit.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like so impressed with them, and I'm just very impressed with them. And
13 hours they flew, 13 hours to get there.
I mean,
so, you just got to admire that kind of dedication.
Yeah. There's no way. I mean, I remember there was a time when they were trying to plan a conference in Australia, and we were all invited to speak at it. I felt so lucky just to be included in, with Becker and Habib and other people. I was like, you want me? Because it's like, okay, yay. And I told Johan and I was like, will you come? And he was like, hell yeah, I'll come. And that was the only way that I was going to take a super long flight. And I was like researching, like, what can I go to the doctor and get like a sedative so I can just sleep through most of the flight and I was really looking forward to it, but the whole event fell apart and it didn't happen. So yeah, lots of respect for anyone who could handle a 13. I always wonder, what do you do? I mean, I figure you read and watch TV and stuff, but it's like so long.
Yeah, but it was very good. So it was a lot of awesome people I got to meet and talk to, and probably
That's
talk their ear
nice.
off. But
Oh, it's they do the same thing. It was nice. It was funny because so many people were tagging me to say, "We're at dinner. We were missing you," and I
Aw.
was just like, "Oh, thank you. What are you eating? What did you order?" But yeah, I think when the last time I was there, Billy and I went to a really cool steak restaurant. I don't think it was across the street, but for all I know, it might have been. The biggest thing that I remember was that Billy was driving a rental car and there were plastic bottles and garbage on the floor. And I was just like, wow, do people know this about you? I mean,
Oh, funny Billy story. So apparently he came to the conference only wearing flip-flops and had not brought any other shoes with him. And it was like 65 and sunny the first day, but it was like 50 and rainy kind of, the rest of the time. So apparently he had to go to Walmart and buy shoes.
nice. Very nice.
So
Oh,
he
that
was
sounds
modeling
fun.
them.
Well, I'll have to call my friend Judy. She owns Canine System Saver and tell her, okay, we definitely are going next year.
Well, yeah, that was another great part, was just getting to talk to all the vendors, and oh my gosh, I have this amazing
Oh
gift
yeah, the
bag
bag.
here.
Yes.
Yes.
What did you get in the bag?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So I have kind of like been holding on to this so that I could talk to you about it. And so my dog Nino has like been going nuts, like, what is in that bag? So we got like a raw vibrance.
Nice.
Free,
I do love the base mixes.
And then Volhart Nutrition, they were giving away just like free, like full-size samples, or full-size products like vitamin B complex.
Nice.
I got digestive enzymes. I got krill oil from them.
Nice. That's expensive.
I know. And then, I did open the Dr. Becker bites because that's like, I've been sharing, Penny and have had some of those. And so they are obsessed.
Yeah. My cat, the first time I brought home Dr. Becker's bites, it was from Super Zoo and it was sort of towards the end of Super Zoo. So I just went and sort of dumped a bunch of the samples into my bag. And I had the bag hanging on the door, on the top of a door. My cat somehow got in a way where he can jump up onto the bag and pull it off of the door, went into it and just started eating.
Went to town.
Yeah. It was like, wow, crazy.
So this was in the gift bag. It is the Real Mushrooms, reishi mushrooms, 90 capsules.
This is a valuable bag.
Yeah. Yeah. We got some chicken, a hula lula chicken.
Nice.
Let's see. We got, Honest Kitchen sample.
Very nice.
We also, I did give Tim, so the Real Mushrooms, they have the chocolate bars with mushroom in them. So it was like super dark chocolate, which is totally Tim's thing. So he got to eat that. And they actually had to make an announcement, like, just so you know, everybody, like the chocolate that's in the bags, that's for people, not food. We got some organic hemp dog shampoo.
Very nice.
I will definitely be using that. We got a cocoa therapy sample.
Yes. Are those the cocoa flakes?
Yes.
I turned my friend onto those and she is obsessed with
coconut chips and a thing of coconut oil.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cute that they did that.
And then I don't know if you saw online, but there was a whole snafu with Dr. Judy Morgan's team and getting there. Apparently Gwen made it. Her luggage didn't. The rest of their team didn't make it, and none of their products made it. So,
Oh
but they did send some gift bag items that did make it ahead of time. So we got like, things like that.
Oh, nice.
And then we got like a green juju sample in here, some treat samples also.
Oh, nice.
And I feel like this isn't even everything, because
that's another thing my cat is obsessed with, green juju treats. I have to go to the he likes the duck treats, but he loves the beef treats.
And then I got another whole folder here. This is just like all of the like pamphlets, and there's like coupons and everything in it too. So, and like I have all these business cards, and
very nice.
It's all the thing. It's going to take me like a week or two just to like unpack this all.
Oh my God. Now you just made me want to, I'm like excited for Super Zoo again, because that's basically whenever I go to Super Zoo, you know how you have luggage where when you put it away in the house, you put a suitcase inside of a suitcase.
Right.
So that's how I pack for Super Zoo, is I pack my clothes in a suitcase and I put it inside of a suitcase. And I'm sure the people there are like, what you doing here? It's just like, I got to go on a trip. And then, when I come home, I just get all the stuff from Super Zoo and pack it into the suitcase.
And then you have 2 bags on the way home.
And then 2 bags on the way home.
Well, one of my friends from Baltimore, she flew to the event, and she had kind of like a big tote bag, and then she had her luggage bag. And then she realized she bought so much stuff that she couldn't fit it all. And a lot of it was, things like this. And she had bought like some CBD and all that. So I ended up like driving her bag back home, so she didn't have to take it through the airport.
That's so nice. The one time was this when I went to the last Healthy Dog Expo? I think it was when I went to the Healthy Dog Expo, because I got a ton of stuff. And when I was on my way home, they opened everything because they were like, well, what is it? And it was, stuff was sealed. And I was like, well, if you have to open it, I was like, but just don't spill it or anything. I was like, because the stuff is valuable and I need it for my dogs. And so I ended up having a talk with TSA about like the benefits of every single thing that was in there. And so I'm just sitting there. I was like, oh, well, I give this to my dogs for this and and just explaining things. And they were just going through.
You should have live streamed it.
I know, holding it up. Well, what about this? And it's just sort of like, and I'm just sitting there. People are walking by like, what is that lady doing? Like I was like this drug smuggler or something. But it was actually kind of fun just to go through. And they were like, wow. So it's like, so you went to a conference for dog people? And I was like, yeah. And it's like, is this common? And I was like you wouldn't believe. And I was explaining and where I fly to. And they were just like, really? And I was like, yeah. It's like, I was like, the pet industry is a $70 billion industry. Of course. And so what's this? I think, yeah, it was because for the life of me, I can't remember her name right now, but she owns Dr. Harvey's. She gave me a full bag of like either the Paradigm or the Raw Vibrance. And that was like the first time I tried it with my dogs. And I was just like, I want you to try this. And I was just like, all right. And so they were like, what's this? And I was like, do not open that. And it's like, it has the ingredients on it, but that is super valuable. Like that costs like $85. So don't open it. But yeah, I have tons of bottles with pills. I mean, who knows what people thought I was doing? I mean,
I will say it was like about a 5-hour drive from Baltimore, and I do still think I would drive next time.
Yeah.
I think it's just
Wendy. I'm sorry, Wendy. That's her name. Her name is Wendy.
I like not having people go through my stuff. And it wasn't like that bad of a drive. So.
Yeah.
And I could listen to podcasts the whole way.
Yeah. If I could do 5 hours, I would do it in a heartbeat. I mean, I actually talked to a local friend for like 2 minutes about driving cross country. Oh, because I was like, I don't know how long it would take. And she was like, it'll take 24 hours. And I was kind of like, I do it, but I don't want to do any of the driving. I just want to sit in the. I don't like driving long distance, and I don't like driving at all. I'll probably drive for like an hour, but I don't want to drive for 5 hours or something.
I feel like that was kind of my max. I don't think I could go much farther. Yeah. And I mean, it is right next to the airport, so it's convenient. But I was like, I think I'd still drive. I like being able to go where, like, I can go to Panera for
Yeah.
lunch or something, or
It is. It's really
I could
nice.
leave whenever I wanted to leave.
Exactly. That's my thing is I just need to be able to hide and go someplace to recharge. And so that's why I kind of like the idea of driving, but I know in reality I would never drive cross country. I just don't have it in me. But I can do 5 hours. I used to do that in college when I would drive home.
Oh.
Yeah. So, well, and of course, that was like 30 years ago. But I think I could still do it.
I had, like, 3 or 4 cold cases from the 90s to solve on the way up.
Nice. But yeah. Oh, well, that was good. Thank you for sharing everything. That was
Yes.
so much. I mean, gosh, so much information. And
Oh, broccoli sprouts. That was one of my other takeaways.
yes, I have broccoli sprout from Rodney.
Yes, from Rodney and from Dr. Becker, and I was, like, texting my husband, like, "We need to do this broccoli sprouts thing, like, you need to get on it right
So
now."
where did they suggest how to, because I just been sprinkling them on my dog's food.
Oh, I think you're actually supposed to kinda, grind them up, or to get, like, the full benefits of
Okay,
them.
then that's good to know.
Yeah.
They carry them at like Safeway here, and basically I want to call, I call it fancy store. And it's not
Mhm.
really a fancy store, but a store that has like a fancy section
Mhm.
might have, because Safeway has dandelion greens, no other store does. And they have broccoli sprouts. I just was like, I bet you Safeway will have. And I walked in and they were right there, organic broccoli sprouts. And so I got a couple of them.
Do you guys have Wegmans out there? I think they might
Mm-mm,
just be an East Coast thing.
no,
'Cause they
that
have,
sound.
like, all the things. So, yeah, so that was, yeah, I was, like, texting Tim, like, 'cause he, he's in charge of, like, the herb garden and things like that, and I have, like, a black thumb. So, I'm like, "We need to do that," and I keep seeing broccoli sprouts everywhere, and he's like, "What broccoli sprout thing?" And I'm like, "Oh." Because he doesn't do, social media, and
Yeah.
so I'm like, "Oh, you don't see this, like, 10 times a day in your feed." And then one of the other just, like, main takeaways that I had was, about being your dog's advocate.
Yes.
And, that's just, I feel like every speaker touched on that in some way. And I was like, yes, 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 because I say that. And even with ourselves and our own health and stuff that I've had to learn, like, that's definitely one of my, like, biggest lessons that I've had to learn is about advocating. And sometimes it's uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and sometimes you're going to feel like the crazy person, and sometimes your vet's going to call you a witch doctor, which
Yes.
happened to me. And and you just have to trust that you're doing, the right thing for your dog. And so those were my big takeaways.
That's awesome. It sounds like it was a fantastic event.
Yeah, it'll probably take me 2 weeks for my low back to recover from all the driving, but it was worth it.
Awesome. Were your dogs excited to see you when you came home?
Oh my god, yes. Like, Penny would not let me out of her sight for like 2 days.
Because that's like the best part. I used to, when I came home from any trip, as I was driving onto the property, I would just film the dog's
Aw.
reaction. And it wasn't even really to share it on social media. It was just sort of like I would just sit there and be like, they love me.
Oh,
Look
they
at
love
this. They
me,
love
yes.
me.
They were both sitting, because I had let Tim know when I was about like a half an hour or so away, and like right when I had kind of come back into Maryland, and I was like, okay, I'm in Maryland, and so he had sent me like a picture of them like kind of waiting, like looking out the front door, and so they were both just like sitting at the front door, waiting for me when I came in, and I'm like, oh, there they are. And Penny, when she gets very excited, she grabs something. It's usually a shoe.
Yeah.
So she goes like running around looking for a shoe,
Apollo does that. He goes and looks, and so we have his toy box is over there now, but he has a toy box, and sometimes I'll put stuffed toys in different parts of the house so that he doesn't go and grab a shoe. So he has the option, because sometimes coming to the toy box is just too far. You got to get something close.
He's got to get to the right, yeah.
Yep.
And then Nino, like he gets like too excited, and he's just got to go chew his ball, and he's like, "She's home! I gotta go chew my ball on the sofa for 10 minutes because I'm way too like excited about this."
I love that so much. Dogs are so awesome.
They are. I definitely felt like I was missed and stuff. So, but yeah, it was a great way to spend a weekend, and like so very like invigorating and inspiring, and but also good to be home.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you went. I'm glad you went. That sounds like such an amazing trip. I'm just like, I'll have to send a message to Kosher, because it's just like, I know that she works so hard on those
Yeah.
things, and she'll probably take like a break for a month, and then she'll be back at
Back
it,
at it. Yeah.
planning the next year.
I'm sure.
I bet it's
I'm
just
sure,
like,
and I'm sure you have to start this far ahead of time too with
hmm
these things, just in the things that I've been involved in like that over the years, in professional life.
yeah, scheduling the place, and yeah, because people plan these stuff out, and it's just like, wow, it just sounds like it just really. I mean, there's always going to be hiccups, but it still sounds that it went off really well, and so
Yeah.
I'm really happy
And
that.
honestly, like any of the hiccups that there were just either sort of comic relief, like the
Mhm.
fire alarm going
Yeah,
off, or sometimes there was like a little bit of a delay. But it's like everybody's like just talking to each other, and so it almost just was like a good thing to like give
yeah,
people more time to like chat and get to know each other and
exactly.
bond and stuff. So I didn't look at any of that as like a negative at all.
Mhm.
I actually thought like, oh, I got to talk to this woman who's like a middle school teacher from art teacher from Cape Cod, and I know about her dogs, and
Oh yeah. Did you get a sense of like where people were from?
it sounded like all over the place.
That's cool.
Um, I talked to a lot of people that were probably like more East Coast
Mhm.
based, but of course, Charlie and Larry were there. I
Yeah.
know Noor came from Paris. I know that there were people from South America there. Of course, Canada. I mean, it was
Oh,
really
that is
like
so
worldwide.
amazing.
Um,
What an amazing event. That's
I know I
so
talked to somebody from
exciting.
Texas, Maine. There was one woman who I had to chuckle. She was from Queens, but she flew there because she hates driving.
How far is Queens from Albany?
I mean, it's in New York,
Seriously?
but I guess it's maybe like 2 or 3 hours.
Well,
But
I mean, I actually have flown from, Seattle to Portland, but I've only done it like once. And it literally is, by the time you get up to altitude, you're coming back down again.
right,
It's
right.
just this. And it's just like, and then you're there. It's a really quick trip.
And I know I talked to somebody from Rochester, New Jersey, Virginia. Um,
Nice.
Yeah, or I know I saw like Florida
Mhm.
license plates in the parking lot, which I was like, "That's a ride," and that
That's
they
a
had dog stuff all over their car, so I know they were
yeah.
there for that.
Yeah, so those weren't rental cars, those were
Right,
actual cars.
right.
Wow, that is so exciting. Oh, I'm glad that you went. That's so exciting.
So I have all these notes. I had that was the other thing that just made me laugh when I saw Charlie and Larry and they're like typing away on their laptop, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm old because I'm like sitting here with like a notepad and
No,
writing things."
I'm
I'm so
actually
analog.
I'm really good at typing. I when I went to the Dogs Naturally summit, I live blogged every
Oh,
session that I went to, but Dana and their team gave me free tickets to go, and so I just had to pay for the hotel and the flight. And so I was like, well, if they're going to give me free tickets, then I'm just going to do this. And it was funny because I live blogged the cocoa therapy session, and they were so shocked. That's how we became friends, because they were just sort of like, we read what you posted, you got all of our stuff almost word for word, because I was just like taking pictures, and I got everything in there. They're like, how did you do that? And it's like, I'm an accountant.
well, yeah, I have like in my notes, it'll be like see slide because I would like take a photo of the
Hmm.
slide, so I'm gonna have to try to turn this into something in my computer or something.
That'll be so much cool. Okay, awesome. I'm excited. That is so much
Yes.
fun. That is so
All
much fun.
right.
All right. Well, that is it for today.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you went. I'm glad. Thank you for sharing that with me. It was just like so amazing. I'm grinning from ear to ear, just like, and I didn't even go. I'm just like, wow, that sounded awesome. And there's a dog right here. I think he's telling me that he wants to eat. So we will sign off for the week, and
Until next time.
yeah, we'll chat again next time.